Hello, I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley.
And I'm her daughter, Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Heidi and I want to welcome you to Open to Hope Conversations, the podcast.
We believe that the greatest gift you can give yourself after a loss is hope, using this moment to connect with others who have not only survived but thrived.
So let's get started. Welcome to the Open to Hope show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi, we are going to have a really interesting show today, and I know in particular you're going to be interested because it starts out with a sibling loss, and then it goes on to how this impacts you through the years, and we're going to get some wonderful advice on early loss and also how you can take care of yourself. So Heidi, you want to introduce our guest?
Sure, Mom, I'd love to. We're going to talk today about loss, abuse, and healing with Kristina Amelong, and she is the author of 2 books, What My Brother Knew, an eye-opening emotional memoir about her journey from loss and abuse to healing and spiritual awakening, and 10 Days to Optimal Health, a guide to nutritional therapy and colon cleansing. Kristina has founded a very successful holistic health business. Welcome to our podcast, Kristina.
Thank you very much, Heidi and Gloria. I'm so delighted to be here today.
We're going to be interested in your story because I think it's really an important story for people to know and very hopeful one. So would you start out by telling us a bit about your brother and his loss and your What My Brother Knew book?
Yes, I would love to do that. So it's fascinating, right? And I know you guys probably know this, but the as soon as you get a space where you feel a connection in relationship to death, like the tears just rise. So I'm feeling very emotional right now. But my brother Jay, when back in 1980, he was 12 years old. And we lived in Madison, Wisconsin, in a working class, poor neighborhood without a spiritual quality in it or even a religious quality. And he started telling us that he was going to die and he was going to die young. And so this was totally out of context for everyone that he talked to about it. And mostly we just ignored him and told him to shut up and go away. And he told me, he told my mother, he told some friends, he told my cousin. And his story was that I'm going to die young. And he wasn't depressed. He was a very happy kid. This was, the late 70s, early 80s, before a lot of kids were struggling as hard as they are these days. And he was very popular. He was very athletic. He had tons of friends. He was always busy. And he came to us and said that he would die young, that it had something to do with the green car, that he would be up above his body watching the paramedics try to bring him back to life, but they wouldn't be able to, that he wanted to be buried at Neptune Cemetery in Richland Center, Wisconsin, Ithaca, Wisconsin, and that he wanted the song Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin played at his funeral. And he was never fraud about it. He was always just matter of fact and urgent about us knowing, but not about trying to stop it or trying to process it emotionally. And of course, like we either, as I said, were ignoring him, telling him to go away, or my mother's story is somewhat different, which is that she actually was trying to stop it. So he did that for 1.5 years where he told this story. And then he was hit by a green car while he was riding his bicycle, and he was killed by the car, and it was a pretty treacherous death.
Kristina, it sounds like he had a very traumatic death when he was hit by the car.
Yes. I was 3.5 years older than him, so when his death happened on May 27th, 1981, I had just turned 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And did hearing that he had a premonition help you, or did it not help you?
It didn't help me at the time because none of us were listening to him. there was no capacity to process that information. It really is, though, and plus how traumatic it was and how traumatizing it was, particularly for my mother. And also the way that it, like, the thing that brings me to tears when I hang out with you guys is the way you come together around death. And for me, it just shattered all my relationships with his friends, with anyone who knew him. After that, I lost all of them. I lost my mother mostly, not physically, but emotionally in a lot of ways. So yeah, it was hugely traumatizing.
And then you got involved with drugs and alcohol, is that right?
Well, both of us had already been involved with drugs and alcohol, but yeah, after that, I went further into my own alcoholism and drug use. So that was a big part of being able to look at his death and come to the journey of his death, was first coming clean from drugs and alcohol. So I had a way of working on all of this stuff and being listened to, and so much grieving that I needed to do.
A lot of what I'm hearing is I hear from other bereaved siblings. Like we put our grief on the shelf for years. We're trying to live through our life. Sometimes we self-medicate through drugs and alcohol, and it's a double loss. We lose the emotional availability of our parents. We're suddenly in a completely new family and worried about our parents. So now I love what my mother said. How do you go from all of this to health and healing? And now you're making it like your life's work to help others, which is phenomenal.
Thank you so much. Well, I was pretty crazy for the first 4 years, I think it was. And then it was so bad, like I was blacking out and driving off the road, and doing a lot of things that I shouldn't have been doing. And I decided to put myself into treatment because I just started to feel so horrible and I wanted to commit suicide. And so I ended up putting myself into drug and alcohol treatment. And so I went into a 30-day treatment program, and then I was in the 12-step program for quite a while. And then from there, I learned about reevaluation counseling, and I did that for 20 years. And through those processes, I had to work on my early childhood first. And then from there, I was able to get to my brother, and crying about it, but then also telling this story, this amazing story of someone knowing that they were going to die. And, it was, even to this day, it's like, it's such an unusual story that there really isn't a container or a culture for receiving it. And so once I started telling the story, that's where people were always saying, you should write a book about that. You should write a book about that. And so then I started to think about it a lot more.
This kind of reminds me of a story in our family where my daughter Heather was sitting on the steps with her friend, and my son Scott, who died in an automobile accident, and he said to them, if something happens to me, don't worry about it. I will be fine. I don't know the exact words. Heather would have to say that. But it was interesting to me because there was a witness there, which is her friend Paige, and then I don't know, maybe a week later, he was killed in an automobile accident. You are very much in the health and, business. Talk about how I can help myself if I have had a loss. What do I need to do?
Yeah, well, just a little bit of a backstory to this whole thing. I got chronically ill as part of that whole process starting in the early 90s, and I had to figure out how to get well. In terms of what to do with grief and loss regarding supplementation and healing, I mean, any way in which we're able to talk about the journey that we're on, share our grief, be open to the rage, the very deep grief, the sobbing, all of that is going to deeply be healing. And then in terms of supplements, it's really important that people are sleeping. So sometimes people need to add melatonin in. And also the B vitamins are really important for supporting our nervous system to be able to be more calm, and then a really solid diet and not using substances ideally to get through the process, because that doesn't necessarily facilitate our healing, but more damages our system. So being clean and sober during that process, even from pharmaceuticals, sometimes antidepressants can be a temporary bridge to healing, but largely they're suppressing our grief and rage and that. So not being afraid of really big, powerful expressions. Like I've beat many pillows and I've sobbed at the top of my lungs many, many times.
Kristina, just to recap what you're saying. So you're saying vitamin B, a well-balanced diet, staying away from substances, and being okay with big feelings. It's okay. I mean, sometimes we do feel like we're going crazy early on
Oh, yeah.
because we're so overwhelmed by these emotions.
Yeah.
So, hopefully getting peer support or some kind of support so that you're normalizing it for everybody out there. You're saying, okay, I was beating pillows, I was sobbing, I was feeling like my life has been turned upside down, and that's okay.
So okay and so needed. The power of the experience needs to come through our bodies, and we need to make sense of it.
And I think what you're talking about, the melatonin, that can be important. I know the one thing I had to do, I'm not a big pill taker, was that I had to get some sleeping pills right after Scott died. I just absolutely had to get some sleep.
Yeah, sleep can be really hard. Like, for instance, in my memoir, I do talk about my mother's nightmares, and sleep can be really hard, especially if you're trying to do a lot of the processing, or maybe it's the soul of the person that's trying to work with you about that.
Well, everybody does it their way, for sure. But you have given people some wonderful advice today on some things that you can do. And what a great example you are of, getting through and being out there helping other people and really making your life count and important. And thank you so much. And tell us how you get your books, and tell us about your practice, how people get a hold of you.
Thank you. So What My Brother Knew is available at all your major booksellers, right? Amazon, Bookshop, Barnes and Noble, but also my website, KristinaAmelong.com, has more information. You can sign up for my newsletter there. And my company is OptimalHealthNetwork.com, which is where I work with people. And interestingly enough, I work with people who are dying a lot, to help them either go a different path or help them transition with more peace and ease. And that's Optimal Health Network, where I work with everything from helping them change their diet to what supplements to take to what other therapeutics they might choose to help them with their lives.
Well, thank you, Kristina. I mean, you're also a great example of the fact that it's never too late to visit our grief.
Right.
You shelved it for a while, and then you came back and really did a deep dive, and then wrote a book, and are going to help so many siblings out there and people in general. You're building awareness and help the world physically, emotionally, and psychologically to heal. So thank you for everything that you're doing.
You're very welcome. Yeah, the journey as I've come back to my brother's story is really that there is a continuation of our consciousness, our soul, whatever we want to call it. And it is a fascinating reality that the human being is such a mysterious thing. And death is not the end. Birth is not the beginning.
Well, thank you for being on our show today and for all the good work you're doing.
You're very welcome, and thank you for having me. It's a true honor, and good job on all that your whole family is doing. It's quite impressive.
Thank you, Kristina. And I know that Jay is your guiding light.
And Heidi and I want to thank everybody for joining us on this show today. And we always want to remind you that if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.
I'm Dr. Heidi Horsley. You have been listening to Open to Hope, the podcast. You can follow Open to Hope on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. To learn more, visit us at opentohope.com and go to Apple Podcasts to subscribe.
I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley. Join us again next week for another Open to Hope conversation, where we invite you to lean on our hope until you find your own.